What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I am Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me we have some more RPG horror stories. I am so excited for this year. There's so many things for me to look forward to. Not only am I gonna do more videos. Oh, give me a sec. Oh, it's just really windy outside, dude. I keep hearing nightmare noises. Like somebody's in my attic, like crawling around, like tapping on stuff. It sounds like I have a demon living in my attic. And I don't even have an attic. I have like a little section above the garage, but that's about it. Maybe I do have a demon living. Anyway, before I consider about having a demon living there, I'm gonna start looking forward to the things to do for the year, like reading some RPG horror stories. The tale of Sceptic, who demanded a fantasy game to get rid of every fantasy element. This here's my first horror story. I hope it entertains you and that I wrote it in a proper way. TLDR at the end. Trigger warning for mentions of ableism and religious intolerance. First of all players involved are on a spectrum and we play in a room provided to us by an association entirely dedicated to autism. Bloody sweet, right? We could play in an environment where our needs will be met, right? Wrong. Basically, the association wanted to be inclusive at all costs, to welcome everybody. And this would ring some alarm bells to any reader who knows about the Popper Paradox. I actually don't know the Popper Paradox. I mean, if I need to look it up afterwards, I'll make sure to do so, but let's get to the story and see if I need to look it up. The rules were simple. If someone wants to participate in an activity, they're in. No questions asked. No checking if they would actually be good fit for the activity or the other people involved. 2. No matter how bad someone behaves, they can never, and I mean never, be actively forced to leave or reprimanded in any way, shape, or form. At most, if enough people complain to the board of directors of the association and the board feels like it, they might take a vote to see if it's the case to do something, and in case of an affirmative decision, they could, when they feel like it, contact the problematic member or their legal guardian to politely ask if they're sure they want to continue taking part in the activity. Right, okay, that actually kind of does sound like a recipe for disaster, especially if you have like a problem player where they physically cannot be asked to leave, meaning that a member could have particularly severe form of autism that made him snap at basically everything, even in a violent manner, or be downright a-hole who genuinely enjoyed being disruptive and ruining the activity for everybody else. Even neurodivergent people can be douchebags, and said everybody else should just accept them and make them feel welcome, otherwise they're excluding someone just for being different. And that takes us to Sceptic, a guy, maybe 20-ish year old, whose entire personality boiled down to bragging about how he didn't believe in magic or religion and how smart and rational that made him. Basically, he got dumped in our group by the board of directors because his mother wanted him to socialize, and the normal games lab of the association was not complex and smart enough for him. Unfortunately for all parties involved, we were at the time playing an urban fantasy campaign. Heavily fantasy, I'd like to add. Every single player had some sort of arcane ability due to both mechanics and setting. Here's the cast. Me, the GM, doing his best. Bastion, our long-distance fighter. Also Marksman, a hunter, an expert of gorilla and were-dire hyena. Bisanzio, our berserker, feels the pain and can stand just as much. Shy, silent guy slowly opening up. Shape-shifting, fire-bending vampire with a knack for building and using the big guns. Guild, our longest-running GM, who put heavy effort in the RP, playing a skilled and elegant fencer. Sceptic, the problem player playing basically himself. Oh, the pain. A thing to add due to the setting, Bastion, Bisanzio, Shy, and Guild all came from different time periods. Bastion, Bisanzio, and Guild because they're historical characters summoned to the present. Shy because, being a vampire, he's old as crap. Anyhow, we get introduced to Sceptic and he immediately takes offense as Bastion wearing a crucifix and start talking about how believing in God is irrational and Bastion should wake up. Now, both I, Bisanzio, and Shy and Guild are atheists, but insulting the faith of a guy you just met and who did nothing to provoke you except for existing is a big no-no and the first red flag. That's a big no-no anywhere, not even just an RPG table. We've seen stories where somebody just harps on someone for playing like a cleric or, I don't know, a paladin, and then you have the edgelord atheist that's like, I do believe in God, so your powers don't work against me, and your God is false, and starting problems over religion. It's like, dude, I'm here to roll funny math rocks. Who cares what God or devil I'm worshipping? Man, it doesn't matter. Who cares? However, his mother smiled and told us that a smart guy like his son had the right to voice his opinion. Although she did apologize, he didn't. If he sounded rude, he did. So, when she left, he started asking what we were playing, and we described him the setting, the mechanics, and the characters. He immediately frowned and told us that if we wanted him to play with us, we had to change the game and play something, you guessed it, realistic. I decided to put my foot down without being rude because I didn't want to cause him a meltdown. Without raising my voice, I firmly explained to him that we didn't have any game with purely realistic elements, and that he couldn't just barge in other people's games and demand to both be allowed to play and for me to play what he wanted. He didn't like this, like at all. He got out of the room and returned with his mother in tow, trying to pressure, force, guilt trip us into giving into his demands. Her main argument was that we couldn't force him to play a game he didn't like, and when we retorted that neither of us could, he changed the tactics, telling us that it wasn't fair that we wouldn't let him play with us. Guild pointed out that we were already playing when he arrived. He was completely unannounced. His first interaction with us was insulting one of us for being different, and even if none of that was the case, you can't just pop in a poker game and demand everybody to start playing blackjack because that's your favorite game. They left for a few minutes, and they returned both smiling. At the time, I thought they were trying to save appearance, but I know now that they were unable to hide their smug satisfaction and the plan they concocted. So yeah, Sceptic decided to play the game, and I, optimistic to the point of naivete, or rather downright idiocy, forwarded him the document with the setting rules and the campaign synopsis so that he could enter the next time. Next session comes, and he brags about having read none of what I sent, because he already knew what character he wanted to play, and he fully expected me to rebuild the setting and campaign to accommodate him. Second red flag. If this was for any other place at all, I think this would be a instant boot from anybody, but unfortunately because of the situation of the place they're playing at, they can't boot him, which, I feel bad for you guys. I feel bad that you can't, like, just have a place of your own to play your favorite TTRPG. That sucks, dude. That sucks. These guys are just unfortunately stuck dealing with this Sceptic, this butthole, as absolute, I don't even know the word for it. Pain in the ass, I think, is the most accurate word I can have. He doesn't want to get involved in things, he doesn't want to try anything new. He just wants to be like, my way or the highway, bitches, haha. I told him that it was simply not going to happen, because that would have meant forcing everybody else to change the character and us to restart the campaign to fit him and him alone. So Sceptic, I crap you not, opened his bag to take out the official document with his IQ test results. IQ is not a measurement of how smart you are. You can still have a high IQ and still come off as the biggest, dumbest idiot in the world. I've seen people that try to flaunt their smart. This guy coming in, he'd be like, look at my intelligence score, it's so high. Yeah, but your wisdom stat is a dumb stat. And of course nobody want to be around you with a dump in charisma, a dump in wisdom. Dude, not tactful, not wise or anything. Look at my intelligence. Yeah, you could do 2 + 2 really well. I get it. Good job for you. Yeah, you want a cookie? You know what a sine, cosine, and tangent is. We're here to play like TTRPGs, man. We don't care for your intelligence stats. Really, who in a literal crap takes that everywhere you go, waiting for a chance to whip it out and brag about it? Also, it was above average, yes, but not by that much. He was like 118 or something. He started telling us how, being he clearly the smartest and most rational person in the room, none of us showed him our IQ test, because we have a personality other than being condescending smartass. How could he know? He knew that right thing to do. Bastion muttered that Sceptic was completely free to go and be superior somewhere else, while Gil decided to be sneakier. Say, Sceptic, what do you think of the late Stephen Hawking? Are you kidding? He was the smartest man ever. So you agree that he was always right, correct? Of course, he was a genius and didn't believe in made-up gods or anything. Guild gave a smile worthy of Willem Dafoe on crystal meth and Sean. What? Why what? Willem Dafoe on crystal meth? Is that a thing? Is that a thing? And shown Sceptic the famous interview with which Hawking declared that people who boast about their IQ are losers. In poor taste? Yeah. Aggressive? Undoubtedly. Undeserved? Oh, hell the heck no. Long story short, I saw Sceptic deflate while positively seething not with rage, but with pure, distilled, unadulterated hatred for all of us. If he got angry, he would have appeared irrational and unsmart in his mind. If he admitted to be wrong, he would have had to concede to the inferiors, aka us. If he tried to be right, he would have contradicted Stephen Hawking, aka admitting that being a genius doesn't mean that everybody has to agree with you. He knew that Guild outsmarted him, and that he couldn't accept it because his entire personality was always being the smartest man in the room. I managed to defuse the situation, and we tried to help him create the character. It was a glorious crap fest. For starters, he dumped literally all of his points into, of course, being smart and having scientific equipment, which really didn't fit the campaign at all. But since we just had to let him play, due to that aforementioned rule of the association, we allowed him to do it. Maybe seeing everybody else having fun would help him understand that he can enjoy and make believe and that doesn't make him irrational or any less smart. He also created his character as a guy who did not believe in magic whatsoever. I want to be honest, I decided to ignore the red flags, not only because we had no other choice, but also because honestly, this character could work. Since in this world, despite magic existing, it was just now becoming common knowledge. Up until a few in-game months before starting the campaign, something akin to the masquerade was firmly in place. It might have been someone who just entered the supernatural world, and therefore started with the assumption that magic was not real. Heck, it could have been the tried and true trope of the scientists who insist on calling magic unconventional science that is yet to be explained, or something. Of course, I was wrong. His entire character was soon revealed to be his plan all along, to play with us and use his character as an excuse to actively ruin our fun. The first incident occurred when Bastion's character decided to fire his musket, and Sceptic stated that, laughing in his face, "Why would you use that weapon? Shouldn't you acquire something modern?" See, Sceptic, due to how this world works, his musket is actually imbued with his fame and legend as an unbeatable hunter and marksman. Not only is it more precise and deadly than any real musket, it could potentially be more devastating than a heavy ordnance rail cannon. No, it isn't. Well, we then explained to him the gimmick of the character being an ancient hero summoned from the abyss of history itself, and Sceptic of course decided that none of that was canon. This became his MO. Whenever anything clearly supernatural happened or was mentioned, he would grind the game to a halt to demand it to make sense to him, and then decided that since it was something he didn't believe in IRL, it didn't actually happen. The worst instance was when we slowed down so much, it took 3 4-hour sessions to complete an objective that I designed to be complete in less than 1 session. But wait, it got worse! Since everything magic was not real, Sceptic refused to help the party in any way, shape or form, because the horde of flesh-eating miasma-oozing skeletons that we were facing, or the threat of the ancient Atlantis superweapon that was about to turn Hokkaido into a smoldering ember, were clearly not really there. Man, this guy has no fun or imagination. He just drains all the fun from everybody. He's like not even a social vampire, he's just a fun vampire. Just sucks all the fun out of everything. There's no fun to have with this guy whatsoever. After some time, I decided to spice things up a bit for the actual players and asked them to come up with a personal goal to give the campaign more stakes. For the most part, it was nice. The players actually came up with some creative ideas. Bastion's hunter wanted to literally die gloriously in a fight with the biggest, nastiest magical monster ever, killing the beast at the cost of his own life, because he felt that being a hunter was what defined him. Bastion himself revealed to me that his plan was for the hunter to eventually get out of the mindset through the bonds formed with the party. Isanzio wanted to become king of Italy, to make the country a better place. The game took place in the present, so Italy wasn't even a monarchy to begin with, but he liked the challenge. Chai truly opened up and wanted to help the other vampires of his particular kind to a better place, Exodus style. Guild went full revolution and decided he would try to end modern legalized slavery by force if necessary. And then there was Sceptic. His stated goal was to prove that magic doesn't exist. Cogs in my brain broke a little as I asked how did he plan to do that when he was literally strolling around with 4 clearly supernatural beings and the party witnessed in no particular order, and among other things, the city of Turin nearly being exploded by an elemental beast, legit Egyptian deities, a demigoddess from Victorian literature trying to murder them. This guy is literally the equivalent of Monkey No See. Or it's like the monkey basically covers its eyes. That's literally him. That's his character, not even personality. His personality sucks, but his character is like, I don't see it, so therefore it's not in front of me. Do you have eyes closed emote? He's like this. I don't see it, it's not in front of me, so therefore it doesn't exist. Dude, come on, just stop. If you try to let yourself have a little bit of fun, maybe you would actually enjoy yourself instead of doing this stupid charade. He shrugged and with a gotcha smile, like this was an incredibly convoluted multi-year plan in which he played the entire world like chess pieces, said, oh, but that never actually happened. It's just that these guys are not smart enough to understand how reality works. He said that pointing at the players, not the characters. I was now pissed. Insulting my friend's intelligence for liking a thing he doesn't was the last freaking straw. No. Well, what are you? The rulebook and the characters sheet say that the characters were able to do those things. The dice rolls say they managed to do those things. The settings we're all playing in say that those magical things that they met were real. And finally, I, as the game master, say that it happened, and that your character is delusional for believing otherwise. I try to be tolerant, and all our group paid the price because you took it as a permission to ruin the game for everybody. I'll be blunt now. Your character will never reach his goal. In this game, magic is real, and any attempt to prove otherwise is like stating that the earth is flat. That was apparently a mistake. I saw him get more aggravated with every word I spoke. When I dared to put his character in the same category of anti-science conspiracy theorist, he exploded and ran away after trying to flip the table up. Luckily for us, the table was of sturdy oak. and Sceptic had the physical prowess of a chihuahua. I needed some time to calm down, and we decided to pause the session for just some mindless fun, watching videos on YouTube and whatnot. Unluckily for us, Sceptic was starting a positive crap storm of slander, telling his mother how we singled him out. Now we targeted him in every session, and how we tried to force him to convert to Bastion's religion, and how we did all of that because we were envious of how obviously smarter he was than all of us combined. It's like the grandma story from the other video. If you're a crappy person and you're clearly in the wrong and clearly nobody wants to deal with you, just start making up stuff, because that's totally a great way to put yourself on a better pedestal. Just make up things. Yeah, that's a great character to have. Of course, his mother reported this to the board of directors. And of course, said board, now wanted to look like they were excluding someone, sided with him without giving us a chance to tell our version. I got contacted by the said board, and after literally 3 weeks of messages, managed to convince them to give us a chance to explain how it actually went down. When we did, the board admitted that our version was the most likely to be true because they knew Bastion was not a bigot. Guild was insanely diplomatic, and Shy was very non-confrontational, while Sceptic was known for playing the victim card whenever he didn't get everybody to admit he was the best. That means the situation was solved and we were all left alone, while they had a stern discussion with him about behavior, right? Of course not. Oh my god, whoever's sitting on your board of directors or whatever, they need to get a grip and realize that, hey, these people are just trying to have fun, and this dickhead's coming in and ruining the fun. What's the point of trying to put a problem in? It's such a, obviously it's a situation I don't fully 100% comprehend, and maybe there's a lot more complexities behind it, but it sounded like the board was just like, you guys should just get along and deal with it yourselves. A very hands-off approach. It's like, as long as you don't ruin it, just do whatever. They downright stated that it didn't matter if he lied and if everything was entirely his fault. He perceived himself as the victim, therefore we needed to make amends and to compensate him by making our game more to his liking. People started protesting, but unknown to both my players and the board, a plan was forming in my mind. It was time to stop being nice to someone who was there with a specific purpose of ruining everything, and try to make the rest of the association hate us the one time we defended ourselves. Not to brag, but I can be both incredibly creative and a first-grade thick bastard. I gave my slimiest smile and asked for his exact and precise demands to be sure to give him a session to his liking. Oh boy, was he glad to provide, thinking that he had the upper hand. Some of the rules he submitted. A player who is unsatisfied with a session should be rewarded for enduring it with objects of his choice. Of course, since he was unsatisfied with every session, he sent me an even longer list of things I had to provide for him. He deserved a solo session without the other characters, whose players nonetheless had to assist to see how smart people win the game. In said session, absolutely no supernatural elements was allowed, even just implied or that could be mistaken for magic. The others are not important. What is important is that I followed them to a T to craft this session. His arrogance made him fail to realize that he didn't explicitly rule that I was supposed to give him anything he wanted during the session. He was probably convinced that he was so smart while I was so dumb, that those rules he posted would have made he was going to be the undisputed Lord of Session. I also had a card to bring up my sleeve to bring the hammer down further if needed, and told the party beforehand what to do when everything went inevitably south. Something problems in game, something problems out of game, but I'm curious to see what the plan was and how they're gonna deal with this problem player. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? They can't remove him, they can't kick him out because the association says you have to play together, kiss and make up, but clearly the guy doesn't want to get along with anybody. He's a dickhead, he's a butthole, he just wants to ruin everyone's fun. Also, we received permission from his mother to record the session, to make sure he wouldn't pull his stunt again. Ah, now I'm getting it. His mother, sure that Sceptic was going to get everything he wanted, allowed so. Basically, said session started with him driving a high-tech van in his quest to prove that magic is not real. Started growing frustrated when he noticed that no supernatural phenomena was appearing for him to disprove. I pointed out that, according to his own rules, nothing that could even be mistaken as magic could appear. Eventually, he found an alley with a vendor of clearly fake amulets and talismans and went to harass him to feel superior. I handed him the victory on a silver plate, not even having him roll anything, and described how the vendor was humiliated and broke by his intellectual prowess. Once he returned to the van, he found it being broken into and robbed by some thugs. He started complaining, and I smiled. Well, your van is clearly filled to the brim with insanely valuable high-profile scientific equipment, things that would sell very well on the black market. Is it not realistic the criminals would see the opportunity to seize it? He decided to confront the thugs. Just what I planned. As you might remember, he spent all his points into his scientific non-combat oriented equipment and in his intelligence, meaning he was a scrawny, inexperienced man facing half a dozen hardened thugs, all armed with knives, brass knuckles, and metal clubs, and whose leader was basically the unholy spawn of Terry Silver from Karate Kid 3 in his prime, and Andrew Tate, armed with an axe and a machete. Sceptic started complaining that it wasn't fair that those opponents were so much stronger than he was, and I simply answered that according to his rules, there was nothing wrong, because it's not unrealistic for muggers to exist, or for people to be MMA experts, or for improvised weapons to be used by criminals. He desperately tried to outsmart the situation, but alas, you can't outsmart a 3600 newtons punch to the front teeth. Sceptic turned to the other players and asked them to help. "You're in Detroit, you left us in Japan. How can we know what you're up to?" I tried to use my communicator to reach him. I recall you actively refused to give us one of those, to punish us for being irrational, stating that we would have no idea how to use it. Even if you did, there's no realistic way for us to reach across half the planet in time to save you. I mean, we could ask one of the NPCs to teleport us there, but that would be unrealistic, because teleportation is not real, right? Sceptic trying to appeal not to logic but to human decency. "Come on, this is a team game. We need to help each other." That's rich coming from a guy who actively refused to help us every single time we were in danger. "I don't believe it was real. You must respect my ideas." And yet you never respected ours. But don't worry, not really in danger. My idea is that muggers don't exist, therefore your character is not being beaten to a bloody pulp. So Sceptic's character got robbed of all his possessions, not only the ones he demanded from me as compensation, but everything he had since he was created, of his money and so on. He had to be hospitalized. It happens when you get savagely beaten up and lose 2 limbs to a machete. When the request giver got the news, he visited him in hospital. He downright stated that he could no longer take part in the mission because his body was completely compromised. Sceptic demanded a way to be salvaged, but I gave my nastiest, most condescending smile. Unfortunately, prosthetic limbs advanced enough for your situation don't exist in the real world. Therefore, your character having them would not be realistic. You would need to spend months just to be able to breathe without coughing blood, and more months to teach your remaining limbs now to function again. Even then, you still lack an arm and a leg. But Chai one time was nearly destroyed, he got better. Why can he and I can't? Well, because what healed him so fast was his vampiric magic. And magic, of course, doesn't exist in this session, right? Then to Rob not even salt but high concentrated sulfuric acid in his wounds, I turned to the rest of the party and asked them if they were satisfied with the session. They, of course, not having been allowed to play, were not. So they, by Sceptic's own rules, received a nice amount of powerful magic items. We prepared them in advance to be as unrealistic and over the top as possible, just to piss Sceptic off. Petty? Yes. Do we all think he deserved it? You have no idea. We had the rules firmly stacked against us by the board of directors. It was clear that whatever he didn't get his way, we would be punished for not spreading our metaphorical butt cheeks, and due to him knowing that, it was impossible to reach him halfway through, because nothing short of us thanking him for ruining the game would have appeased him. And if we were to get that, it would simply confirm to him that he gets to do whatever he wants because he is oh so much better. He went off about how we had the duty to appease him, about how we were a bunch of slur for people with Down syndrome for disagreeing with him, about how he had an IQ of 118 and therefore he could do as he pleased and we all had to obey him. I grinned more, precisely what I was hoping for. Once he stopped to breathe, I pulled a thing from my bag, my aforementioned card up my sleeve. See, I too got tested for IQ when I was young, and my parents were still trying to understand what my condition was. I showed him a copy of the papers with all the official marks and signs and whatnot. I point him the number, a nice big fat 142, woo! I genuinely saw his brain shattering like Bohemian crystal. He knew that if he tried to pretend that my document was false, anybody could accuse his IQ document to being false. On the other hand, admitting that the document was legit would have meant admitting his intelligence number wasn't the highest in the room. He positively shrieked that he was going to destroy us, that he was going to make an example out of us, that he was going to have us booted from the association, that we made ourselves a dangerous and smart enemy. Yes, so smart that he confessed that his entire plan in front of the camera. I could see Sceptic evaluating his chance of stealing the camera away, and understanding that, being in on the other side of the room, he would have to go through Bastion and Guild, the two most physically fit members of the group. He ran away, and his mother came into the room to demand us to destroy the record because it was causing emotional turmoil to her son. When we pointed out that he was only angry that he couldn't lie and blame his own shortcomings on everyone else as usual, she tried to say that she was taking back her permission to record her son, a thing with a negative amount of legal power. She resorted to begging us to give him another chance. After all, we had proved our point, and making him upset about the game was just cruel, right? I, as the DM, try to be diplomatic. Ma'am, can you be sure that he won't pull any other stunt like this once he's pulled every single session? Or that whenever we don't change the game to make him feel superior, he won't try to ruin our reputation? Can we record every session to make sure we have evidence of his lies if he tries that again? She couldn't answer that, and so Sceptic's time with the association came to an end. No big fight, no meltdown, no legal fallouts, nothing. So this is my very first horror story. Hope you enjoyed it, and that my group didn't seem too nasty. We're usually very amicable, but we were forced in a situation where someone was being actively disruptive and offensive to punish us for lacking fantasy, and rules were specifically made to stop us from getting help. No, I don't think you guys should feel bad at all. You guys will you had your backs against the wall by the association, and you weren't allowed to not have a problem player there because the association wouldn't allow it. But now you have physical evidence, and you showed physical evidence, and you could show the physical evidence of that sort of behavior that would make the association look bad if they let somebody like that stick around. I wish things would have just ended up better, and the association would just remove the guy and just put him in a different group or something to like not let y'all have all this hassle to deal with. But you wanted to have a place where you can just play your game, and this guy just didn't want to have fun with you and want to ruin your fun for his own entertainment, which is really crappy. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales tomorrow. Bye-bye.